It's a great delight to talk about the work of Carmen Calvo because she represents something of a unique exception in Spanish painting, particularly as we speak of the late 60s and early 70s when she emerged as an artist. So obviously she was born under Franco's Spain and lived and grew up until the mid-70s under the Franco regime. But from the outset she was always very rebellious and very interested in feminine concepts and in feminism in general as it was emerging. So as her art emerges in the 1970s, there's a focus on other strands quite distinct from painting. And those strands one might call the tradition of surrealism, which came to Spain in the 1920s at the time of when Magritte and Camille Gomans, the Belgian surrealists, met Dali and Buñuel. There's that tradition. There's another tradition of Spanish art in Neo-Dada, a sort of Neo-Dada qualities that's implicit to her production of art. And of course the dominant art of the 1960s was pop art, or as it's called in Europe, Nouveau Realism. The three interests that seem to dominate her art continuously. As I alluded to surrealism, there was the tradition of mystery or mystère. The other strand that is particularly strong in her work is, like many Spanish artists, is an interest in eschatology, otherwise death. The theme of the dead often appears in her work. But predominantly as well, there is a focus on life events. And the interesting aspect of life events, of course, is central to the work that's currently installed here in Volkerdijl's gallery. The Cage to Live In draws upon actually a newspaper event from the late 1990s. The event itself was the discovery of a child that had been kept in a cage, and so the theme of the cage to live in, is a loose translation from the Spanish, but in a certain sense the theme here with all the drawings, which are drawings, collages, montage elements, as it were, emerges from that. What is interesting, how does this fit in then with the themes I've already argued? Of course, the large-scale central installation of this exhibition is very much a mystery because you can only see its contents through very small peepholes, some of which have a sort of fisheye lens which magnifies the interiors, others are just straight glass. So you never actually get to see the total installation in its interior. So the drawings themselves are exemplum of the contents of this large installation, the Cage to Live In. And in being so, they sort of extend the theme of drawing, which runs throughout her art. There is a sort of literary side also to Carmen Calvo's work that I find very strong. And these drawings are a storytelling, but in a displaced sense, in a way that displaces it from the immediate event, which, as I say, still remains a mystery. And of course there's a sound work that accompanies this particular installation, which of course is a child crying. So the contents of this interior space are things like mannequins, children's dolls, toys, fetish objects. All of these are the materials that constitute her work. And as I said, that's an idea that goes back in some respects to Neo-Dada itself, that notion of bricolage. So beyond that, thinking beyond the present work and the work that has continued, her work continues in this language of and medium that incorporates drawing, photography, bricolage and installations over the last 20 or so years. This is a particularly unique one, and it's very interesting that this is her first major exhibition in Berlin, given that she is such a very well-established Valencian artist living in Spain.